Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. And keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy.
All right, folks, here we are on Thursday, January 9th. We're going to take a look at Plug today. So, Plug is in a pretty interesting spot. This is actually one of my favorite setups that I look for in terms of potential for trend reversal. Now, I put trend reversal in some great big air quotes because what I mean by trend reversal is that it can be a brief trend reversal. And I'm looking at this 183 EMA here, this long-term EMA that I have on the chart, and all that I'm looking for is action to and through that 183 EMA to say, okay, if we get some price action above it, then maybe we have a chance for at least a brief trend reversal. Ultimately, what I'm looking for here are these short-term EMAs, the 8, 21, and 34, to also get pulled through that 183 EMA. Then I start to feel comfortable that, okay, there might be something a little bit stickier here. Maybe ultimately it still sells back off and, resumes this long, sad downtrend that Plug has been on. But if I'm looking just for a trade, if I'm looking just for a swing, a brief trend reversal, becoming briefly bullish, is totally fine. And Plug is, in an interesting spot. We see a bump in volume in this period of time, right? Since like November on, we see it clearly coming up from the volume here. Actually, we could throw in a relative volume. You see spikes here, right? Getting spiky. Um, and that starting to push the price up now, and it interacting with this 183, it had a strong wick off of it here. That was toward the beginning of December. And then it did punch through on this day where it jumped almost 20%. And that was just on the 6th of January. And then the following day pulled back a bit, about 6%, and then on the 8th, yesterday, it came down pretty hard, another 9.5%, and that got it interacting with the ATMA. Again, if I'm looking for a bullish, reversal, even if it's brief, I'm feeling okay if the price comes back down and catches support at the 8 EMA. That's right where I would want it to catch support. And especially knowing that it's also continuing to interact with the 183 EMA. I never anticipate a stock to come up to the 183 if it's coming from below, to come up to the 183 and just sort of breeze through the 183 all like willy-nilly. I think even I was looking the other day at like Tesla coming through. Like even when you look at something like Tesla, just as an example, in the summer here it came through and it did pop right through that 183, right? It wrestled with it for like a couple of candles, but then it shot just way off of it, and almost came through like it was nothing. However, what then happened pretty quickly, like within a month or so, was it came back down to give a full retest of that 183, and then it really struggled with it, right? And it needed to wrestle, and it came back and reconfirmed again. So it really sort of did like two reconfirmations on the 183, and then it did it again a few months later in October. And so even something where it does kind of fly through, there is just often the tendency for it to come back to it. And more often, especially in these stocks that look like this, right? Tesla doesn't look like this. It's not in this just incredibly harsh, lengthy downturn like Plug is. But so especially for a stock like this, I just wouldn't anticipate it to come and just rise sort of easily through that 183 and carry on its way. So I feel okay that it's struggling through this. I'm really interested to see when things kick back in tomorrow, and especially early next week, do we continue to get support off of this 8 EMA? And if that 8 then starts to cross through that 183, then I start to feel, pretty solid that maybe there's a trade here, maybe there's a swing. And I don't know if it becomes a longer term bullish trend that seems very hopium to me. um, but even if it doesn't, take your couple week swing or take your couple months, whatever it is. Or, maybe you get stopped out and you take a little bit of an L. But this is, the strongest potential that it's had in a long time, because even when, even here, for example, right, it had this huge day where it's up almost 20%, and it came close to the 183. It didn't have any proximity of the EMAs. So I know folks often look for price action above the 183 EMA. I am more interested in the short-term EMAs coming through the long-term EMA than I am the price action, because the price action can get overextended. It can be really, it can be pop and drop for sure, right? Like you saw here, pop and drop, definitely. And it could do that over the 183, but I don't start to feel interest or confidence until the short-term EMAs start to cross over the long-term EMA. And right now, the short-term EMAs are in a fully bullish formation. And so if we get a ride of the price action riding off of this 8 EMA, we should, in the next few trading days, get a crossover of the 8 over the 183, and we'll see if then things start to pop off, if we get a little bit off to the races, even for a brief period of time. We'll see if that's the case. If it rejects, right, here's the other side of this coin. It rejects and it needs to come down and it starts pressing toward the 21 EMA or even the 34, right? Yeah, then this might be another sort of flash in the pan where it got close and it tried to push through the 183, but it was just too much resistance and it failed. And that's just the case. That's why you have criteria for getting in and getting out. Now, the other look that I have on this, besides the EMAs, are these levels here, right? So the nearest in levels that I have at the moment are 242 to the downside, so support at 242 and resistance at 292. Now, the other factor here is this uptrend support. So if it does come in, or even if it goes sideways, does it continue to get lift off of this uptrend support? If that's the case, then you also have typically bullish formation happening, or a bullish pattern happening here, where you get a series of ascending triangles where this uptrend support meets an area of resistance. Also call it a flat top sometimes, right? Flat top. So often, typically we look at that as a bullish pattern, an ascending triangle. Look for it to pop through the top, right? Break that resistance where the uptrend support wins. It beats the resistance level. Now, eventually, all of these trend lines and those things fail, right? So at some point this breaks and it doesn't happen, right? At some point it either falls through or it comes up to this flat top and it actually does the opposite. But that's why I say we typically look at these things as bullish trends, bullish formations, but those things always eventually break. Now, if it does get leggy through 292, we have 342. We have a ton of levels here. We have levels all the way to 5. We have levels all the way to 9. So, I mean, I've been watching Plug for a long time. So we have levels up the yin-yang, at least to the upside there. To the downside, we have 242. Then we have that uptrend support, and then we have 195. So we'll see where this puppy wants to go. On the think or swim side of things, of interest here, maybe, is back here in late August, trigger fire, and then a lengthy trigger through October, almost the whole month, and then a fire, and then a brief trigger and fire, and then a recent trigger and fire. And, you could sort of look at this two ways. You could say, TTM squeeze indicator on Plug keeps throwing trigger and fire signals and nothing's happening, right? Yeah, that's true. Another way to look at it, though, is to say, okay, it's now on its third, maybe you could say fourth, but this is just a one-off trigger candle. So I would say it's on its third round of trigger and fire, and it actually is starting to get a little bit jumpy now, right? It's jumping out of the channel, it's interplaying with the January call trigger on the ATR levels, and it is getting a little bit jumpy now. So another way to look at it is it now has pent up 3 triggers and fires, and it hasn't played out an outsized move yet, but it's starting to look like it might. And so maybe if we get an outsized move, we get the pent-up energy of 3 consolidations and fires sort of all rolled into one. If that's the case and it comes to the upside, the +1 ATR for January right now is situated at 515, right? So that gets it well through a bunch of these levels, right? All of these that we see in the chart anyway. Unless I zoom out. Ooh, I don't want that there. Unless I zoom out. And if it's an outsized move to the downside, put trigger is all the way down at 142. So I don't know how that really plays out, but maybe even if it comes down toward that put trigger, obviously it's not going to go to the -1 ATR because that's in the negatives. So that won't happen. But if it gets motion below that, like the baseline ATR right now is situated a bit above 2, and toward that put trigger, you're sitting down there at or below 1.5. So that could be the case also. So just because you get sort of pent up energy on the TTM squeeze indicator and you're looking for an outsized move once it fires, which it's doing now, just keep in mind that outsized move does not have to be to the upside. That can be to the downside. You're just looking for an above normal or above average period of volatility in the stock. And so I'm curious to see if we get sort of the move of a pent up 3 trigger and fire situation with plug, just because it is starting to look like it wants to move. It did a bit back here as well. And it has been, wild roller coaster, even sort of in this range. It has been pretty roller coastery, but it's part of the reason that it's so interesting to me right now is just the proximity of not the price action, but the proximity of the short-term EMAs to the long-term EMA. It's the best chance that it's had in a long, long time to get those crossovers to happen. Last time would have been back here in July of 2023. But you see how close that was, right? Fully bullish formation. The approach was coming, and it failed twice. I know it's more than 2 candles, but it's sort of swing 1, swing 2, and then rejected bearish crossover, right? And that's where you have to go, okay, it's a bust. There's not going to be a reversal here. That's when you got to lick your wounds and take it and say, okay, there was the potential, and it couldn't make it happen. But that was a really good opportunity as well. And you see, if you were buying in there, you were buying in at the 12s. And if you decided to just bag hold because you couldn't deal with taking a small loss, at some point you were sitting down here with shares at $1.60. And that's why, even if it feels like a big loss at the moment, cut it when you can. And that's the best you can do, right? You can cut it as soon as you can cut it. And you can't go back in time and cut it sooner. And that's just the case. But this is, like I said, the best opportunity since July of 2023 for plug to get even a brief trend reversal to give an opportunity for a swing or something like that. So we'll see if it can do it or not. But it doesn't scare me, or it doesn't ward me off at the moment just because it's struggling with the 183. I would expect it to do that. But it will be critical to see, does the price action lift off of this 8 EMA on Friday and continue to do so next week, or does it come down and need to press toward the 21, which would not give me really so much of the good feels if that's the case. All right, folks, so I hope that you enjoyed your day off, though I suspect you stock market addicts were unhappy with the unplanned day off here, but so it goes. But in any case, I hope that your trading week finishes off strong tomorrow. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.